Hello and welcome to the Random Access Show. I'm Leon Panopoulos, and in today's episode we will be talking all about the dangers of the Restrict Act. That's a new bill expected to be passed through the United States Congress. I'll also be bringing you an update on TikTok with one of the states in the USA, having gone that one step further and banning it completely. We'll be talking all about that and more. I'm Leon Panopoulos and you're tuned into the Random Access Show. Hello and welcome to the Random Access Show. I'm Leon Panopoulos, and in today's episode, we're talking all about the dangers of the Restrict Act. Now, the Restrict Act is a bill that's expected to be passed through the United States Congress, and it was introduced by a Michael Warner. He's a senator in the U.S., and basically, it will give the United States the power to ban any product or site or app that it sees as to be sabotaging the security of the United States if it's from a so-called foreign adversary, and we'll get to that in a second. But basically, like I said, it gives the United States Secretary of State powers to restrict, basically, as the name of the bill suggests, restrict the United States citizens' access to a product, site, app, service, etc. So, United States Congress has had this bill introduced to them. Michael Warner introduced it to them, and I have access to the final drafting text of the bill. And the Secretary of State will basically be allowed to, like I said, ban any site or app or website or product that it sees to be sabotaging the national security. Now, the Secretary of State has a lot of power in this situation, obviously, if this bill does get passed. But we'll get to that soon. I want to let you know, though, what a foreign adversary is, according to the bill. So it lists 6 countries, and I'll quote the bill right now. Quote, "The People's Republic of China, including the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region and the Macau Special Administrative Region, the Republic of Cuba, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, the Russian Federation, and the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela under the regime of Nicolas Maduro Moros." Unquote. So basically, if you didn't know, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, it might sound like it's South Korea, but it's actually North Korea, the official name for North Korea. So if a tech company is based in any of these 6 countries and releases a product, a site, app, service, whatever it may be, to the United States, if the United States Secretary of State sees it as sabotage or subversion of, and it has a few requirements for the product to meet. But if the United States Secretary wishes to ban it and it meets the requirements stated in the bill, then individuals will no longer be allowed to use that product, use that app, use that service. So it really is quite restrictive, this bill, and a lot of people are against it. Yes, it may just be to ban TikTok, but it can also be used to ban other apps, other services. So obviously, if it was to ban TikTok, which one US state has already done, which I'll mention a bit later on in the episode, but if it was just to ban TikTok, that would I suppose would be a better act. But this Restrict Act is has been implemented, or if it is implemented, will be implemented to give the Secretary of State this power so that you can stop getting, it's basically restricting your freedom of speech. It's restricting your freedoms in general. This could go on to, they could amend the act to change the definition of a foreign adversary and extend it to any country. They could change the requirements in the act and say if the Secretary of State wishes to ban a product or a service or a Apple site, then they can, no matter what. It doesn't have to meet the requirements in the bill. They could do anything with this act, and that's why it's so dangerous. Maybe it's just to ban TikTok. Maybe it's to keep our data safe, but it's not only to keep our data safe. It is so that I see it as the government being able to control what we are doing online, which I suppose they sort of have the power to do, but now they want to really start using that power, and saying, because it's a sabotage and a risk to national security. Well, let people take that risk. If people wish to take that risk, let their data get sold to who knows who and who knows which companies. Let them take that risk. Do not impose a restriction on them that stops them from being able to use an app, service, or product because supposedly their data might get sold. We know that when we sign up to a service online, every service is required to have a terms and conditions and a privacy policy. That privacy policy is required to disclose any data, how they are using their data, how they what they're going to do with your data. And you technically are required to read that. You click on the checkbox and you make a tick. You are required to read those terms and conditions. By signing up, you agree to them, right? There are certain apps that will actually make you scroll all the way down before you're able to click the accept button on those terms and conditions. If you do not agree with how your data is going to be managed, do not sign up to the platform. Do not sign up to the platform. Right? The government knows that these restrictions are in place for you to, the privacy policy restrictions and the terms and conditions restrictions. They know that these are in place. People should, whether or not they do read it, like I'd say probably 1% of all people that sign up to a platform, actually read the privacy policy and the terms and conditions. By the way, that's not a real statistic. That's just me. But if, the government knows that these the privacy policy is there and the terms and conditions are there, right? There are other ways you can keep our data safe online. There are other ways you can do it. Restrict how our data is being used. Restrict what to the extent the privacy policy can go. So yeah, even if they disclose that your data is being sold off to some random company or some random government, right? Restrict what you can actually do with our data, our publicly our non-public data, which has been requested in another act to Congress called the Data Act, which I'm not going to really talk about in this episode. But there are other ways that you can restrict where our data goes without restricting what we do. Now, according to the bill, the Secretary is authorized to and shall take action to identify, deter, disrupt, prevent, prohibit, investigate, or otherwise mitigate, including by negotiating, entering into, or imposing and enforcing any mitigation measure to address any risk arising from any covered transaction by any person. If it poses an undue or unacceptable risk of sabotage or subversion of the information and communications technology products and services in the United States, catastrophic effects on the security or resilience of the critical infrastructure or digital economy of the U.S., interfering in or altering the result or reported result of a federal election, or coercive or criminal activities by a foreign adversary that are designed to undermine democratic processes and institutions or steer policy and regulatory decisions in favor of the strategic objectives of a foreign adversary. If it otherwise poses an undue or unacceptable risk to the national security of the U.S. or the safety of U.S. persons. Now, what this basically does, what this says is that, obviously you've got the federal elections results mentioned in there. So if a foreign adversary is using these platforms to tamper or alter the results of a federal election, you've got the critical infrastructure and digital economy of the US mentioned in there. So you've kind of covered all bases here, but again, people are scared that this could be used to become more like an authoritarian state and become where, you've only got X amount of apps that you can use. These are the ones that we've set out for you because they meet our agenda. They meet what we're what we want you to do. Right? This is what we want you to do with your phone. This is what we want you to do with your computer. This is what you're allowed to do with your computer. So obviously it can get a bit fluffy, right? It's kind of in this gray zone, right, where it's going to protect the data of US citizens, but to what extent? And that's what you got to think about. To what extent do you want the government to intervene with how your data is being used? You have the responsibility to figure out how, you have the responsibility to manage, for the most part, how your data is going to be used, where your data is going to go. Do you want the government interfering with that? That is a completely different question, and a lot of people are going to say no. There would be people that are going to say, yes, I'd rather the government intervene so that I don't have to take that extra step, or and fair enough to them, I suppose. But for the most part, people do not want the government to intervene in what they're allowed to do on the computers. But I will move on to TikTok now and its ban. In a certain US state, Montana has banned TikTok, or is going to ban TikTok. The bill has been passed through their legislature. The bill has been passed through their government. All they need is the governor to approve of the bill, and it will, if the bill is approved, it will come into force on the 1st of January in 2024. It will ban the use of TikTok on personal devices. However, it's a very iffy law. There are a few weird parts to it. So, for example, this bill would ban app stores from carrying TikTok on their platforms, and it was voted in and approved 54-43 in Montana in the legislature. It's the first we've seen of its kind. No other US state has done this, and I think it won't be the first US state. It won't be the first. It won't be the first US state that we're going to see do this. Is what I'm assuming. A lot of people are against it, and the bill only references TikTok, and it's only about banning TikTok. So it's not like a state-based form of the Restrict Act, which is a good thing, I suppose. It's a better thing than having a Restrict Act. But yeah, it will ban TikTok if imposed, if approved by the governor. But according to some experts, the ban will be easily circumvented. And this is what I thought when TikTok was first, the whole conversation about TikTok being banned was first mentioned. I thought you'll be able to use a VPN, you'll be able to use a proxy, and that's what we've been told by experts in technology experts, people that know what the bill ensues. All right, maybe not on your phone with app stores and stuff like that, but on your laptop, if you position yourself into another state with a VPN, right? If you're in Montana, you say that you're in California, or you say that you're in New York, you say that you're in Washington, Florida, whatever. But if you're in Montana and you put a VPN on, set you to in one of the other states, you will be able to use TikTok. Proxies, same thing. So there's a lot that Montana's ban, if they want to make an effective ban, then there's a lot they need to figure out. Which I suppose is a good thing that they haven't figured this out, or they might have, but there's not really a lot that they can do about this. I can't see a way of banning it in the entire state, unless going to the ISP level, which they could be doing. But let's get into the quick stuff. And iOS 17 is finally expected to introduce one of the best features you have on Android smartphones: side loading. If you don't know what that is, right now on the app on Apple devices, you can only get apps from the App Store. On Android devices, you can download apps from any third-party source, like you can on a computer, right? So on a computer, I have the Windows Store or the Microsoft Store, whatever you want to call it, right? And I can download apps from there. That's their first-party official store. But I can also download apps as an exe file online and install those to my computer. And that's basically what side loading is. That is what side loading is. Except on a smartphone, it's where you go and download it. On Android phones, it's as an APK file. On iPhones, we are yet to see what that would be. But it will be extremely exciting. It will allow for a lot more flexibility. And it's all thanks to an EU legislation that was passed. Unfortunately, iOS 17 is probably not going to be available on my phone, which is my iPhone 8, my trusty iPhone 8. But it might be available on your phone as long as you've got an iPhone X or above. That's all for today. However, on the Random Access Show, I'm Leon Panopoulos, and if you still haven't checked out our YouTube channel, make sure to check it out. Check out our website as well. However, I'm Leon Panopoulos. You're tuned into the Random Access Show.